But we're talking about the most brilliant mind this world has ever seen.
And welcome into the Brian and Brenden Talking About Beaver Football podcast. For the first time this week, we've only done one this week. We feel like slackers and whatnot, but
It's been a little busy.
it's been a little busy. We have midterms,
Life, school, things.
but nevertheless, we are here to talk about Beaver football, who are coming off of a loss against Washington last Saturday against the number 5 Washington Huskies, who are now, if they win out, they're probably in the college football playoff. So that's a really good team. Oregon State fell 41-17, fell behind 21-0 in the first quarter, and then Washington was kind of just able to coast the rest of the way. Oregon State, showed a lot of toughness and whatnot coming back. I mean, outscoring the Huskies 17-10 in the second half, which is improvement in one way. Washington could have easily called off the dogs or whatnot.
Called off the dogs on the dogs.
Called off the dogs. Gosh, so many dog puns this last week. But anyway, we were up in Seattle, Brenden, for that game. How was that experience?
Oh, it was tremendous. I mean, wish we could have got up there about an hour or two earlier. Had a few car troubles along the way, Brian. Didn't think we ended up taking my car. Didn't really start off well with a dead battery right at your house, did it?
Yeah, this trip almost didn't happen, but hey, we got up there.
The ironic part about that is actually yesterday the battery actually died, and I had to go to Napa and change out my whole battery and I went and I took it in there like, well, yeah, probably about 3 or 4 more starts and you wouldn't have made it to Seattle. So someone was looking out for us, Brian.
Yeah, definitely.
We barely made it, man.
Yeah, that would have been such a bummer if we had, midway there, gotten a dead battery or whatnot.
Yep.
So thank goodness for that. But we got up there. We had enough time to do everything. We were a little rushed and whatnot, but hey, it all came together.
Yeah, the Washington's got some. They got some nice toys up there. Some fine accommodations. I've never seen a PA mic, a ref mic, and a crowd mic input in a booth before. That felt me. It was awesome. And then just the way Washington's communication staff is. Their main SID, Jeff Bechtold, really nice guy. They were super helpful the whole way through. Helped us out with some equipment and whatnot. I mean, it was obviously the stadium was beautiful. Washington's got something good going up there. They got something good. I think it's going to be pretty self-sustainable for a while.
Yeah, that was my first time ever being up there, and I was just really impressed with the whole atmosphere. I was down on the field, right before kickoff, and man, that place was big. It was a big stadium. It was, it was close to a sellout. There was a lot of people on the field, and it was, I mean, you were in the press box. There was times when it was shaking. It was a great atmosphere all around.
Well, it's funny because both Mike Parker and Jerry Allen of Oregon State and Oregon said that back before they redid it and the press box still had wooden beams, it used to really get scary up there. But it's still the press box. I mean, coming up until this weekend, Autzen Stadium in Oregon was the loudest stadium I've ever been to. Washington took the cake. And I would love to see Washington when they play somebody really good. I can only imagine that Washington-Stanford game.
Yeah.
I mean, it was impressive. It was a loud stadium. It arguably is the best view in college football.
Yeah, no, it was just a stunning facility all around. The outside, the architecture was really nice. The inside, just a great place to watch some college football. I mean, we were in our booth. We were on the 50-yard line, and can't ask for anything better than that.
They made it so just the way that it's designed, almost every there's not they put the booths in the middle, so there's not a booth that isn't between the 40s.
Mm-hmm.
So and even the reporters had I love the being able to bring up kind of the garage door and open it up as the elements allow and whatnot. Yeah, and it was 60 degrees and warm too.
Yeah, that's when I like it. But remember last year in the Civil War?
Oh yeah,
they opened it up and it was 20 degrees outside.
It
wasn't a huge fan of that.
Freezing. Hey, we were on the roof. I don't want to hear you complain, Brian.
Hey, I'm just saying if you have the capabilities of closing the
True.
closing the press box, go for it.
We could definitely talk about Washington's facilities all day. Obviously, it didn't end up well for the Beavers, but I was impressed. They were super nice people. We had a great time broadcasting up there, and Oregon State showed us some signs of life.
Yeah, let's just dive into a little bit of that game with Washington. Obviously, Washington, better team, number 5 in the country now, number 4 in the driver's seat in the Pac-12, has an inside chance at the college football playoff. So, Brenden, from this game, what did you learn about Oregon State, and what did you learn about Washington? What did you just learn from this game, whether it be about Oregon State or whether it be Washington?
Oregon State finally has the running game Gary Anderson's wanted since he's got here. And I've also learned Oregon State might not have a quarterback on the roster that can throw super well downfield.
Yeah, no, those are good points. So one of the things, like, to talk more about that running game, yeah, they're pretty much able to run when they want to. Washington's no slouch at run on defense, especially against the run.
I was surprised they actually ranked 7th in the Pac-12 in rush defense compared to Washington State. Upcoming opponent ranks number 2 in rush defense. Obviously, take it as it is, but that Washington's strength is just an overall defense for sure.
Yeah, and they just rolled out Tim Cook, who got his first. I mean, he didn't start, but he got his first extended action and really took advantage.
It was Paul Lucas that started, right?
Yeah. So yeah, no, that was really good to see, especially Tim Cook, and obviously those are the type of games you like to see from Tim Cook or people like Tim who have. He worked a lot to get to where he's at right now. He had to jump through a lot of hoops to get here, to get to a point where he's playing Division I football. He's went to 2 junior colleges, suffered a season-ending injury a year ago.
In the weight room, tore his pectoral muscle while lift by trying to bench press 475.
Yeah, and then of course, I mean, he got shot in the leg a couple of years ago. So yeah, it's really good to see people like that when they get their opportunity that they're ready for it.
That's when people were saying that touchdown against Minnesota and that screen pass was so satisfying, but then he just kind of largely disappeared since. And it'll be interesting to see. I fully expect, regardless of the injury report, I think Oregon State's going to have all 3 of their running backs this weekend, just based on what I've seen so far in practice this week. But or arguably, I'm confident that Tim Cook will get that medical red shirt and come back next year. He's technically listed as a senior, but Oregon State has to wait to the end of the year to see if they can get him back. I think they do. And man, you're looking at a complement next year of Ryan Nall, Artavis Pierce, and Tim Cook. No slouches there in the running back spot.
Yeah, and obviously Ryan Nall, who was in a boot last week,
completely out of it
this week. He wasn't running with the offense when the media was available.
Yeah, the thing that led me to believe I think he did, I can't speculate, of course, but the fact that he was in a red no contact jersey, led me to believe that he probably did something.
Yeah, and Pierce and also Pierce is back running with the offense. So those are good signs moving forward for the Oregon State running game. But man, that reshuffling of the offensive line, getting Sean Harlow back, that is really just really taking the running game to a whole different level.
Some people called me crazy, but I said I thought it'd be a game changer, and it turned out to be. Yeah, I mean, I was like, man, this could be the piece they're missing, and little that we're gonna reshuffle since that Colorado game. Running game's been on point.
Yeah, and yeah, so basically what I learned that Washington is just a really good team. They can beat you in 2 ways on offense. They can run the ball, they can throw the ball, they can throw it deep. Like, even though Browning only completed 50% of his passes, the passes that he were completing were for huge gains.
And that's the thing that worries me. We'll talk a little bit about it upcoming, but just Oregon State getting those big chunk plays after being so stout defensively before, and then now going up against arguably a better pure thrower in Luke Falk, in my opinion. I think Jake Browning is a really good quarterback, but I think in terms of being able to make all the throws all over the field and do nothing but throw 60 to 75 times a game, Luke Falk's probably the best in the Pac-12 at it.
I agree. But we'll talk a little bit more about Luke Falk and Washington State and what they bring a little bit later. So what did you think of Marcus McMarion's performance? First start of the year against Washington.
I mean, honestly, I don't like how they had to burn 3 timeouts so quick early. I think that was disappointing. I think he did all right. I'm still not seeing Oregon State take very many deep shots, and I wonder if it's because they don't have the arm strength, the one-on-one matchups. You just think Seth Collins and Jordan Millman, you'd be able to take those shots. I wish Oregon State would open it up a little bit more. And I think that's the thing is I'm seeing these little dink and dunk passes, but nothing like, the best play of the game, in my opinion, was the Timmy Hernandez catch. I believe it was like an 18-yard gain. Mm-hmm. Outside of that, nothing super crazy.
I mean, they were able to hit Jordan Villeman deep at the end, but I agree. If, like, we're just like with conversations with just, other media members, it's just like, man, if I'm a defensive coordinator, like, I like playing Oregon State because you can bring your safeties up. They're not gonna threaten, deep very often. And right now, Oregon State is just kind of missing that receiver that they can just like go to. They don't have a Brandon Cooks, a Marcus Wheaton, a Mike Hass, where they can just like a receiver where they're like, hey, we need 7 yards, and that receiver gets them 8.
Yeah, I mean, like for Cal's missing that with Chad Hansen right now, or Oregon, Oregon's missing that receiver too. Washington's got John Ross. I mean, there's just, you got to have that it receiver, and Oregon State hasn't had that it receiver for a couple years now, to be honest with you. And I think that kind of leads back into it because they haven't had a receiver where they've just like put fear in your heart since Brandon Cooks left, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, and I think that's what's missing in the passing game is they just don't have that go-to receiver.
I really thought it was going to be Jordan Villeman coming into the year.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan Villeman, Victor Bolden, those are all really good.
You caught up with him earlier this week. Did you chat any bit about about that passing game at all? Or,
I mean, he was just like with Villeman.
Yeah,
I don't know. I
just wonder what his struggles have been this season.
I mean, there could be a bunch of different things. I mean, obviously, running with 3 different quarterbacks for the last 2 years, it's tough to develop like a real chemistry that way. I don't know. There's just right now, I don't think they're using him to his strengths as much as maybe like they did under Riley when he was as a freshman, was a big play receiver. And I don't know. I think just not having that quarterback right now, it's starting to wear down on these receivers a little bit.
It's a fair point.
And yeah. So yeah, what do we want to talk about next? Seth Collins. Are we sure he's a good wide receiver?
I don't know. I mean, the jury's out on Seth Collins for me. I mean, I think Seth Collins, his demeanor and attitude fits in with a wide receiver a little bit sometimes. I mean, it's hard because I really thought that this year Seth Collins was going to grow up a little bit, and I haven't seen it. It's like that play on the interception. He goes and just takes a meaningless cheap shot at a guy and gets a 15-yard penalty that ends up leading to another Washington score. Right now I'm just seeing a kind of a little bit of selfish football from Seth Collins, just kind of me. And, you kind of see that a little bit in practice where he'll go deep on a route and miss a play and then will just kind of gingerly walk back and just not run back to the huddle. And I don't know. I still think the guy's incredibly talented. I not striking me as a team player right now.
Yeah, that's an interesting point that you bring up. I mean, wide receiver is a difficult position to transition to, especially from quarterback where you're used to having the ball in your hand every single play to all of a sudden you're not getting it every play. So much is dependent on quarterback being able to make a throw and whatnot. And that's frustrating. You see NFL receivers still have that issue and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, he had that 100-yard performance against Boise State. But since then, he's gone 56, 27, 18, and then no catches. Like those are yards. So he hasn't gotten that 100-yard performance. I don't think he's even totaled 100 yards since that Boise State game. And the passing game is just like really, really struggling right now.
And arguably though, against Boise State, a lot of those yards came from Connor Blount, who happened to make a cameo today at practice.
He did. So yeah,
Connor Blount looks like he's actually probable. Must have been something as simple as like a strain or something, because he's already I wouldn't be surprised. I know he's not listed in the depth chart, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if something happened to Marcus, he'd probably go in and play.
Yeah, I think they're going to try and save not McMarion's, but Moran's red shirt. So yeah, I don't know what he'll bring to the passing game. I saw him throw a couple passes today. One of them would have sent Jordan Villeman to the hospital if it was in a game.
Wow, that's a scary thought, bro. I didn't see that. I didn't see that play. I must have been looking the other way.
Oh yeah, Villman was running like a dig route or a slant or some point, and just
so like Arizona last year where he just got clocked.
Except this time it would have been by a linebacker.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, Oregon State's quarterbacks just are a bevy of youth.
Yeah, bevy of youth. Yeah, I expect Marcus to play a little better.
He's at home. Yeah.
Yeah, it's his first start at home.
I think ever. Yeah, right?
Yeah, his 2 starts have been on the road. Washington State, their defense is good, but I don't think they're as good as...
Their strength of their defense is rush defense. And I think if I'm, honestly, you look back at it, and... when Mike Leach came to Washington State, he came and they've had great offense since he got there. They've gone 3-9. They've had a couple bad years since he got there, but he got there. He had Jeff Toole for a little while, had Connor Halliday. He's had good quarterbacks, good receivers since he's been there, and Mike Leach always had good offense even at Washington State. They still never struggled to put up points even from day one when he got there. What he struggled with was finding that defense. So what does he do? He looks at the Pac-12 and he says, you know what? There's a lot of spread in this Pac-12. What can I do to shut down the spread? So what's he go do? Go finds and hires Alex Grinch as his defensive coordinator. Alex Grinch was a Chip Kelly disciple and learned the spread offense and was a Chip Kelly defensive disciple, and was in coach Chip Kelly at New Hampshire and, learned this ins and outs of the spread offense. Took him a couple years. And now you're seeing the benefits as Washington State, is amazing in the rush defense. Their strength is in their run defense, and I think they're going to, Alex Grinch, they like to blitz, they like to do a whole bunch of different crazy sets and bring alternate pressures from different directions. I think Alex Grinch is going to say, you know what, Marcus? Throw on us. And they're going to, eventually someone's going to say, Oregon State, we're going to put 8 guys in the box. That's what teams are doing with Christian McCaffrey and Stanford because they know Stanford can't throw.
Yeah, I don't know why it's taken so long for defenses to start stacking the box against Oregon State.
And I think it's going to happen this weekend. I really do. And I think Marcus McMarion's going to have to take some one-on-one shots downfield. I think the Beavers are going to have to really emphasize the screen game in the running game because Washington State arguably blitzes more than any opponent all season as well. So they're going to have to get creative on offense with play calling this weekend, Brian.
Yeah. So do you expect Marcus to be better or worse than last week?
Definitely better because I know Washington State's defense is not Washington's defense. Washington's defense is littered with guys that are going to be in the NFL. Puda Baker's going to be in the NFL. I'm drawing a blank on their 2 linemen's names. They're going to have 2 defensive linemen in the NFL. They're going to have a couple linebackers. Their defense is stacked. Absolutely stacked. Sidney Jones, cornerbacks. Absolutely stacked. And Washington State, there's a couple guys. Hercules Mataafa is just a great linebacker, D-end hybrid. Cougars have some good players, yes. But, I've also seen, Arizona State still put 32 points on them, and Arizona State's got a really weird quarterback situation right now. And, Eastern Washington put up, I think it was 52 or 45. Can't remember the score of that game. Boise State put up some points on Washington State. Let's see, I'm trying to think who else. Oregon still managed to put up points against Washington State. And then even Stanford put up a few points against Washington State. So, I think Oregon State's just going to have to figure out what Washington State doesn't do well. And I think their weakness is in the pass defense, and Marcus has got to let it fly. So I think he will have a better game. I tamper expectations because I said I thought Oregon State I'm not sure if Oregon State will get to a 300-yard passer this year, Brian.
Yeah, I think this is the week that it might happen, though. I think they're going to have a... Yeah, I just think Mark... For one thing, this is the first time in his time at Oregon State that he's going to be the starter for 2 straight weeks. So going into this week, he was barely getting any reps in practice.
Shoot. It was Darryl and Connor Blount getting all the reps. Yeah. Basically after Idaho State. Yeah, I think going into Boise. Yeah, this was the Boise State week. We're like, why is Connor Blount taking reps?
Yeah, and
so Marcus did not take a rep after that until after Darryl got hurt.
Yeah, so there's a reason he's all of a sudden getting a ton more time practice. He was doing all this virtual reality stuff, which I guess is one of the ways to keep improving. But now he has 2 weeks of reps, whatnot, going into a game. And I don't know. I just think, and obviously Washington State is not Washington in terms of their passing defense, but that those reps are so important. They talk, coaches everywhere just talk the importance of getting reps in practice and building that kind of chemistry within the passing game. And so I think he'll be more improved. I think he'll be settled down a little bit after his first start. I just think that he could. I think he could touch 300 yards. It depends what's working, because they're going to try and run the ball. Obviously, they've had success doing that. So,
yeah, and the thing is though, I looked at a stat today and it was crazy. If you had to guess, Brian, what do you think the difference is in total yards between Luke Falk and Oregon State's next nearest passer in yards?
Well, let's see. Luke Falk's probably already eclipsed 2,000. It's got to be a lot.
Luke Falk's at 25-10. Oregon State's next leading passer is Daryl Garrettson at 6'10". After that, their next leading passer is Marcus with 232.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that just shows how much Oregon State struggled in the passing game. And they were actually worse than they were last year. And that's surprising, Brian, given the fact that Seth Collins was throwing the rock last year.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with the passing game. I've never, in my time watching Oregon State, seen a passing game struggle this bad, where it's just like completing just the simplest of throws just looks exhausting. Like, there hasn't been a time this year where a receiver, I feel like, has caught the ball and been able to make a move like upfield. It's just like everyone is like catch and just like get to, and they're like falling to the ground because the throw's so inaccurate. And it's just mind boggling sometimes, like watching them, try to, get something going in the passing game. And I don't know, like what's the problem? The offensive line has played well recently. There's receivers here that have played well at the Pac-12 level. Like Daryl Garretson, he was good at Utah State. He had some big games like against BYU and stuff. There's just nothing good about the passing game right now.
I don't know. I mean, I haven't really looked to see if Oregon State's got. I mean, obviously, we can't speculate on any potential commitments, but Oregon State's targeting some pretty good receivers this year in in terms of recruiting, and maybe they just need to get some receivers that. Mike Leach talked about it for years. He had to find receivers that fit his system and fit what, he wanted to do. Sonny Dykes had to get him receivers that fit what he wanted to do. I think Gary Anderson kind of tore this thing down, maybe even more than he needed to. I think he tore this thing absolutely to the ground.
I think more than anything, they need to find a quarterback.
But that's the thing. I'm still not convinced Daryl Garretson can't be that guy. I'm convinced Daryl Garretson has not been healthy since that Minnesota game where he played lights out.
Yeah. I mean, maybe.
And I don't think he was ever healthy after that game.
Yeah.
Well, I can't confirm, but I mean, you look at it and, you look back and this week, Oregon State now plays Washington State. Luke Falk threw 6 touchdowns in the first half last year against Oregon State. Question is, can they shut that down?
Yeah, Oregon State hasn't had a passing touchdown. Well, they've had 4 all year.
Yeah, and Luke Falk threw 6 against Oregon State last year. He has 29 on the year, I believe. Yeah. So Oregon State's got their hands cut out for him. But granted, they shut down a Bear Raid offense earlier this year.
Which leads to my next point with Washington State. How good are they?
Well, it's tough to say. Is this going to be the Washington State team that showed up against Eastern Washington and Gage Gubrud, or the Washington State team that showed up and, beat Stanford on the road?
I'm going to go with the latter.
Beat Stanford on the road?
Oh, yeah. I think this is a good team.
Yeah? So what explains the loss to Eastern Washington?
Bad week. Eastern Washington's good. Just those happen. They're a really good team.
You know what I'm thinking? I'm comparing this to the Oregon State team of 2013.
Oh, you don't think Washington State's very good?
No, but I think right now they've played the easier part of their schedule. I think Washington State is kind of like Oregon State in 2013, where they lose their opener, they reel off a ton of straight wins, look really good, and then later in the season, some of their defensive deficiencies maybe catch up to them a little bit. I could be wrong. I still think this team's going to win 8 games, but, good is a relative term compared to Washington, who's the class of the league right now. I think Washington State will lose 2 games in conference. I think they'll lose to Washington. I think they'll lose 1 more along the way.
Yeah, I see their only loss is Washington. I think Washington State is good, and you alluded to their defense. They can run the ball now.
Yeah.
That's made their passing game so much worse.
Mike Leach wants to have balance with Jamal Morrow, as he says.
Yeah, they've improved their rushing attack. by 30 yards from last year, which is in turn giving them, they went from averaging 30 points a game last year. Now they're up to 40. Their offense now is humming.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, you can't stop their passing attack if they're able to run the ball. They're not having to throw the ball 50, 60 times anymore. They can, but they don't need to. They can run the ball.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. They can.
And their offensive line is probably the best in the conference and one of the top ones in the nation. I mean, that's all based off of Pro Football Focus, where they like rate them, but they have like 4 of their offensive line are like graded as the top at their position.
Really? In the pack?
In the nation.
Really?
Yeah. They got some players on the offensive line, and some of the things that players and coaches were saying, like, yeah, they like Philip Napoleon was like, I've never seen an offensive line like that. Like, I don't know how to like, they're trying to come up with ways of how do they get pressure and whatnot.
Interesting.
Yeah. Good offensive line play is key, man.
It is, absolutely. And I think Oregon State's got it going too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll see, but I think Washington State they'll be able to rely on that offensive line. I don't know if there's enough teams that can keep up with them offensively, and they'll do enough defensively to win it.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
And then hey, in those rivalry games, anything can happen.
Yeah, you never know. It's true.
All right. So what does Oregon State need to do to pull off the win?
Pressure on Luke Falk. I mean, Oregon State, the last 2 times they've lost to Washington State, and 2 years ago, it was Luke Falk's first career start. Oregon State couldn't get any pressure, and he threw for 400 and some yards, and Washington State ran away with the victory. Last year, he threw for 6 touchdowns in the first 30 minutes. I mean, if you can't get pressure on the quarterback, you're not going to win football games. And unless Oregon State can... I look for Oregon State to dial up a lot of blitzes and leave their corners one-on-one. You may leave some underneath routes, but if you can hit Luke Falk 2-3 times and get him off balance a little bit, I think that'll be the only chance Oregon State has.
I'm going to go a different route. I'm going to say they shouldn't worry about dialing up blitzes and whatnot, and they should sink people into coverage.
I bet Luke Falk's good enough to where he can find the holes in the zone, period.
Yeah, but those holes or zones are going to be even bigger when Oregon State's not great pass rush can't get any sort of rush on against that offensive line.
Perhaps. I mean, there's no great solution to this. This is the last, in my opinion, this is the last really tough team Oregon State plays for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and that is very true.
The schedule the schedule opens up with winnable games after this.
Yeah, I would try and drop more people into coverage. Do some obviously do some different types of stunts and whatnot, but yeah, I would try to
disguise some coverages
and whatnot, and just confuse them. But I would.
The thing is, though, one thing we haven't really talked about is I've been thoroughly impressed with Kevin Clune this season. Coming in, Clune, I think, might be better for Oregon State than Kalani Sitake was.
Yep.
Kevin Clune was a really good hire, and I really liked what he does on defense. Arguably, he maybe isn't quite as thin as Oregon State was last year, but still not much better. And Clune's still producing. I think he's doing a really good job with the situation. I think Kalani Sitake had a hard time coming over here after having a really good defense. Clune's rebuilt defenses before. I don't think Kalani Sitake ever had to rebuild the defense. And I think that's one thing that fits big for Oregon State. I mean, Clune went and rebuilt Utah State's defense. He rebuilt Hawaii's defense. Kalani Sitake's kind of rose up through Utah.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm a big fan of Clune. Had a conversation with him, way back, at media day, and just listening, he was like, yeah, this guy knows defense. This guy knows how to get things done. Just by the way the players were talking about him.
And imagine when he has recruits and can actually right now he's probably using half of his defensive playbook, if that. Imagine when he can do what he wants, because Clune's he wants to be an aggressive defense that can bring pressure. He still can't do everything.
I think he can.
I don't know. I don't think they have the bodies to do everything he wants to do yet.
Well, he actually touched on that today. He's like, yeah, it doesn't matter who we have. We're going to call the defense the same.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still not quite sold on that.
Yeah. Well, maybe he's not telling the truth, but yeah, no, I'm a big fan of Kevin Clune and what he's kind of brought to the defense. You can see tangible improvement.
Yep.
They have 2 good corners. Their safeties are playing well. Like, I mean, coming off a game against Washington, it's not going to be great. But right now, I think if they had better talent, I don't think it would change the like play calling or anything. But it would just, when you have better players, you get better results.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more.
So anyway, let's get into our picks now for this week. We got, you know what, first let's review our last week.
Okay.
You and I were both very close with the Washington-Oregon State game. You had 45-21. I had 41-24. That's basically the same thing. I got it right with the points of how many Washington would score.
Yeah.
But yeah, good week there. Cal, 55-35, you had them winning. What was the final score of that game? It was a lot. It was like 50-50, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that game went to double overtime and all that. Yeah. Cal got it done. Found a way to beat Oregon. Oregon's now lost 5 straight. It's pretty great.
It is pretty great knowing that Oregon's lost 5 straight, isn't it? I mean, granted, Brian, I know you were sick as a dog and didn't have to watch that game, but the true diehards stayed up and watched that game.
You're a true diehard.
What do you call that?
I don't know.
Diehard. I don't know. Diehard college football fan staying up till midnight watching that game. God, it was quality. It was. It was quality. Now, Brian Rathbone was too busy turning orange.
Yeah, just chugging that orange juice.
Yeah, but that was a good game. I think we both had Cal, right?
Yep, both had Cal. I had them. I had the closer point spread, but you had the points right.
Cool.
Colorado, Stanford. Stanford offense sucks.
Did you pick Stanford?
I did.
I got Colorado.
Yeah, Colorado didn't even deserve to win that game either. A 10-5 game.
I said, I told, because Keenan Punkocher and I had our radio show earlier this week. I said, there's one way to describe this game. Disgusting.
Yeah, 10-5. That's no good.
It's disgusting. I mean, unless you like defense, but it was like, Stanford quarterback. I think it was, I forget which one of them starts, Ryan Burns or Keller Christ.
It doesn't matter.
But anyway, they threw like 3 picks. They turned the ball over 4 times. Colorado didn't turn the ball over. I think.
Yeah, once in the on the goal line at the end of the game, it was
they fumbled on the goal. I mean, yeah, it's just anyway disgusting. But next,
there's no winners there. All right, so Utah, UCLA. You picked Utah. I picked UCLA. If Josh Rosen was playing, he wasn't playing.
So you picked Utah.
So I picked Utah.
Mike Fafal though threw a lot of yards.
Yeah, he did. He stepped in and played actually
Oregon
really
State
well.
could use a quarterback like that could just step in and throw a whole lot of yards.
Yeah, that would be nice. But yeah, Utah. Gosh, Joe Williams. I need to retire for a couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean, Joe Williams. He pretty stud muffin.
Yeah, and then UCLA. I think they've lost 5 games now.
UCLA. They're talking about getting rid of Jim Mora. I mean, honestly, the expectation since he got there was to make it to the playoff with Brett Hundley, with Josh Rosen, and he just hasn't been able to produce. His recruiting classes have been really good.
Yeah,
he just hasn't been able to produce. Much more than just the 8-9 wins. But when you have, UCLA is just on a hotbed of talent. It's like USC. It's like, unless you're winning and competing for the title every year, especially this year when UCLA has picked to win the South, you're gonna make some people upset.
Yeah.
So I could see him on the way out at the end of this year. He's had now, 2012, 13, 14, 15, 16, right? 12, 13, 14, 15.
Yeah.
5 years. And doesn't have a whole lot to show.
Yeah, I don't think he has a 10-win season.
Yeah. And they've been, Brett Hundley's junior, they could go to the playoff. Largely disappointed. I mean, 5 years, that gives a person plenty of time to get your recruits in there. I could see, that's a whole different conversation, but I could see Jim Moore on the way out.
Yeah, I agree. It's just not a good look for that program right now.
And lastly, we have one more, right? Or was that it for predictions?
I think that was it.
Okay, so Brenden went, I believe that was what? 1, 2. Brenden went 5 for 5?
Yeah, I went 5 for 5.
All right. Beat Brian again. See, I can't beat you in trivia, but I can beat you in score predictions.
Yeah. Trivia, man. And that's all that matters is trivia.
Well, I take great pride, Brian. I don't think I've lost to you this year in score predictions. We've tied.
Yeah.
So I'll take some pride in that one.
All right, so let's get into this week's game.
The pick'ems.
Yeah, so you had... So who did what was your score for Oregon State again? Remind me.
For Oregon State, Washington State?
Washington State.
Oh, we hadn't predicted it yet.
I thought we did.
No, wait,
Never mind.
We hadn't got there. We're going to save that for dead last.
Yeah, say that for dead last.
Well, I mean, we'll be starting Cal USC on a Friday night or Thursday night. Cal got stuck with a Friday night game and then a Thursday night game the next week. That's weird.
I mean, it's still...
No, but it's just weird how they had like a bye week and then a Friday and a Thursday. You usually don't see those back-to-back like that. But Cal at USC in the Coliseum. If it was in Berkeley, maybe. I got the Trojans in this one. They've had a bye week to prepare. Sam Darnold looking good. I got the Trojans. I got them putting up on Cal's defense. I got them going 45-35.
35-45. Is that what you said?
Yep. In favor of Troy.
All right. Cal. It'd be nice if they had Chad Hansen back.
He might. I don't know. I know he had a sprained ankle. So
yeah, I think I'm gonna go USC too. I think that they're playing pretty well. I think they have the defense to kind of match up with Cal. USC's playing pretty well right now. I'm gonna take them as well, but I'm gonna go 35-31 in favor of the Trojans. Who's next, Brenden?
Washington, Utah, game of the week in Rice-Eccles, top 20 matchup. I usually smell upsets. If this was, call me crazy, Brian, but if this was a night game, it'd be an upset for Utah. But the fact that it's at 12:30, going Washington. If it was a night game in Rice-Eccles, totally. But I got Washington winning. I thought Utah had a good defense, but they allowed a lot of points to UCLA last week. And Washington, I think Washington's more complete, and I think Washington will go into Rice-Eccles and get the win. I got Washington 38-21. I just don't think Utah's offense can break free like they did against UCLA.
Yeah.
UCLA's defense is pretty bad.
Yeah, I don't think anything can. I don't see an upset happening, even if it was a night game. Washington's too complete. And Utah had some major holes. Their offense is pretty average. I think that they'll try and make whoever their quarterback is now.
Troy Williams.
Troy Williams. Yeah, I think they'll...
The Williams. Troy and Joe.
Yeah, I think they'll try and shut down Joe Williams, and they'll try to make Troy Williams beat them. Ugh.
Oh, it's so funny because when Josh Ward and I were calling that game, he's like, "Oh, Joe Williams, Troy Williams back to back." So they got the Williams connection there going on. No relation though.
I'm gonna go 44-21.
All right.
In favor of the Huskies.
Arizona State, Oregon.
Ooh, that's an interesting game.
I got the Ducks just because it's in Autzen. I saw some things against Cal that I liked from the Oregon. Arizona State's kind of a mess right now. They really don't know who their quarterback is. They can't win on the road. If it was in Arizona Sun Devil Stadium, I'd say disagree. But I got Oregon winning 41-28.
Yeah, Arizona State.
Just weird this year.
They're weird. What have they won? They've won 6 games already, or are they still at 5?
Arizona State's still at 5. They're 5-3 now.
They're 5-3. Yeah,
and they started the season 5-0.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm taking Oregon.
I'm pretty sure they started the season 5-0. I'm gonna double check that.
Like Oregon needs a get well game.
Or sorry, they started the season 5-1 with their loss to US. Let's see what their losses. Got blown out by USC, blown out by Colorado, and then lost to Washington State by 5. But 2 of their 3 losses are blowouts. Their only wins are against Northern Arizona, Texas Tech, where they scored 68 points and allowed 55. UTSA, who they won by 4. Versus Texas San Antonio. Beat Cal 51-41 and beat UCLA 23-20. Nothing super impressive to me on Arizona State's resume.
Yeah, I'm going to take Oregon as well, as much as I hate it. I'm going to take them 42-35 because I still don't believe in Oregon's defense at all.
Alrighty.
Next game on the docket.
Let's see here. Sorry. Looking on the docket here, we got Stanford, Arizona. God. I'm getting back on Stanford's winning ways here. They can't lose to Arizona. Arizona's honestly might be the worst team in the Pac-12.
Yeah, I agree.
They're bad. Granted, they had a bye week to get ready for this game, but man, oh man, they are bad. Like, Arizona is really bad. I got Stanford, and I got them still winning nothing impressive, 20-14. It's close, but Stanford can't score.
Yeah, Stanford's offense is really bad.
On paper, it's worse than Oregon State's.
It is. It really is. I think Oregon's... Yeah, gosh, 5 points. No.
Brian, you're
Sorry.
picking Arizona?
I'm taking Arizona.
Get their first conference win of the year.
First conference win of the year.
Wow. Okay.
They find a way. But they win 21-17. Stanford's going to find a way to score 17 points. God, I can't believe I'm doing that.
All right. So now we got Oregon State, Washington State to finish it off.
Here we go. I don't think Oregon State has much of a chance.
Neither do I. I got Washington State winning 45-28.
Yep. Better at quarterback, better at offensive line, better playmakers.
I'm going to rephrase that. 45-21. Oregon State won't be able to score 4 times. 45-21. Granted, Washington State is only a 13-point favorite.
Yeah. I have them. What did I said 48-24 on Josh Warden's show.
You called in again, didn't you?
No, I just walked in.
Oh, nice. I just walked in.
I was like, hey, let me talk some things. And Josh was like, okay.
14 points.
Yeah, I think they're going to double them up. They're just better. They're just better. Better quarterback, better at offensive line, better wide receiver. Their defense is better. And Oregon State's offense or passing game can't really score. So unless they have a repeat performance against Cal where they can just like run the ball for close to 500 yards, I don't see this game.
Well, you never know. Maybe the Wrecking Null can make an adjustment.
Ah, yes, he is coming back. Or I really hope he does come back, just because
I want to see that. I want to see that graphic.
Yeah, games are just so much better when he's around.
I just want to see the graphic on the scoreboard. It came in like a Wrecking Null with literally Ryan Null on a giant chain ball. It's kind of cool. But I mean, honestly, if he plays,
if he plays, that might change a little bit.
I think he will, though. I really do. I think he sat out last week, and Ryan's like, well, I know he's listed as doubtful or questionable this week because he was doubtful last week. Yeah. Questionable. You know, Ryan told me last week, he's like, I want to play against Washington. He's like, if it's not this week, then definitely next week. That's what he told me last week, so I'd be surprised if he didn't play.
All right. We literally picked the same teams except for Arizona, Stanford. I'm just ready for Stanford just to screw me over one more time.
Yeah, they probably will.
All right. So I think that should do it for this episode of the podcast. Little midweek flavor.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I thought it was a very good podcast, and as always, it's always a good time to talk some Beaver football. Yeah, it should be interesting. Hopefully this is the last difficult game for Oregon State. Well, I mean, you look at the schedule. Stanford's not as impressive as they have been. UCLA is not as impressive as they have been. Arizona's and Oregon are both combined for 0-8 in conference. Yeah. So after this, it's so funny, Brian, because when the season started, everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, Stanford, UCLA, Arizona, Oregon. What of murderer's row?" And how that's flipped on its head. Yeah. Because everyone in the beginning was like, "Oh my gosh, Oregon State could beat Colorado." So I mean, murderer's row. I think it's really flipped, and heck, Oregon State, they could. I still wouldn't be surprised if they won 2 more games this year. Yeah, no, it's definitely there. Arizona, Oregon, and Stanford. I think those are all winnable games. I think UCLA even could be too. Yeah, UCLA. It depends. If Rosen's healthy, which but Stanford absolutely is a winnable game down there on the farm. Yeah. Load the box against McCaffrey like everyone else has been doing. Force Keller Christ or Ryan Burns to throw the ball. Yeah. Oregon State could be going bowling. Who knows? Whoa. Yeah, way too early. Bold prediction. Yeah, bold. But hey, it could happen. Okay. Hey, maybe there'll be a 5-7 bowl eligible team. Maybe. Happened to Mike Riley last year. It did. So never know. That's always a little something to keep in your back pocket. So yeah, we'll be back at Reser Stadium this week. Yeah, Brenden will be on the call this week. Not Brenden, not Josh Warden this week. So. Josh Warden will be in the student section. I'm excited to see him down there. We talked a lot about that on the show. Brenden, what are you most excited about for calling your first game? Calling my first play-by-play football game. It's just going to be exciting. Keenan Bunkocher, and then we'll have Caleb Chappelle as our spotter. I'm excited to get the radio crew together. I'm excited to be like Luke Falk to Jamar Morrow or Luke Falk, because it's going to be high-paced, exciting. It's not one of those grit and grind games. I think a lot of points will be scored, and those are always fun to call. Yep. Who's number 25 for Washington State? I haven't got that far yet. I got to study quite a bit. Tomorrow. I got to study quite a bit yet. All right. So well, I'm still got to get on it. That's why we did this podcast early, so Brenden has plenty of time to study. So anyway, thanks again for listening. We'll keep these coming as long as you keep listening. And thanks again, everyone. Have a nice night.